The year was 1909. Belfast, Ireland hummed with a symphony of industry. From its depths, a leviathan was taking shape, a testament to human ambition and engineering prowess. The RMS Titanic, destined to be the largest moving object ever created by man, was slowly emerging from its steel cradle. Each clang of the hammer, each rivet driven home, spoke of the audacity of the dream and the unwavering belief in its realization. Newspapers around the world heralded its construction. Images of the colossal hull, dwarfing the men who toiled beneath it, captivated the public imagination. It was more than just a ship. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, a floating palace that promised to redefine luxury and transatlantic travel. Society's elite, captains of industry and hopeful immigrants alike, all were drawn to the allure of the Titanic. The air was thick with anticipation. The sheer scale of the project boggled the
Titanic story.
3,000 skilled workers
Drained dry.
Their days of blood, sweat,
This is the wreck of the Titanic.
As
You've never seen it before.
Amidst the cacophony, there was an undercurrent of pride, a sense of being a part of something truly extraordinary. The shipbuilders of Belfast,
It's
many
the
from
most infamous
generations
ship
steeped
in all
maritime
history.
tradition, poured their
The
hearts
Titanic.
and souls into their work. They understood
From a
the
time when
gravity
ocean
of their
liners are
task.
racing to be the
This
biggest,
wasn't just about
fastest,
building a ship.
and best.
It was about breathing life into
RMS Titanic.
Little did they know that
technological
their
marvel.
creation would become an enduring symbol of
When she
both
set
human
sail in
triumph
1912,
and tragedy.
she still
Titanic wasn't merely a ship, she was a floating metropolis. A marvel of engineering, she boasted unparalleled luxury and amenities. Her interiors were awash in gilded grandeur, a testament to the opulent Edwardian era. Fine woods, plush carpets and sparkling chandeliers adorned her many public rooms, each more opulent than the last. The first-class accommodations were nothing short of palatial. Spacious suites, complete with private promenades and elegant dining salons, catered to the whims of the world's elite. A grand staircase, fit for a king, swept majestically through the heart of the ship, connecting its multiple decks. For the second-class passengers, the Titanic offered a level of comfort and sophistication previously unheard of on the open seas. Comfortable cabins, a well-stocked library, and even a dedicated smoking room provided ample opportunities for relaxation and socializing. Even those traveling in third class, many of whom were embarking on a new life in America, found themselves in accommodations that far surpassed the typical steerage conditions. Clean and spacious dormitories, communal dining halls serving hearty meals, and open deck spaces offered a glimmer of hope for a brighter future. The passenger manifest of the Titanic read like a who's who of the early 20th century. Millionaires and socialites rubbed shoulders with immigrants and artists. Each passenger carried their own hopes, dreams and aspirations, their lives intertwined by fate's capricious hand. Among them were John Jacob Astor IV, heir to one of America's largest fortunes, traveling with his young bride, Madeline. Benjamin Guggenheim, the mining magnate, and Isidor Straus, co-owner of Macy's department store, were also on board, accompanied by their wives. Their presence added an aura of wealth and prestige to the already illustrious voyage. But the Titanic also carried countless ordinary people from all walks of life. Families seeking a fresh start
to
in a
damage
new world,
from the iceberg
young
that
couples
sliced her
embarking on
open.
honeymoons, and
A
seasoned
team of
travelers
scientists
seeking
equipped with
adventure.
cutting-edge
All
tools
were drawn to the
now
promise of a
tackles
safe
the
and swift passage
long-standing
across the
mysteries of the disaster.
There was an almost palpable
Could
sense of excitement in
rewrite
the air as
the
passengers
Titanic
boarded the ship.
story.
Friends and families
Drained
tearful
dry.
farewells and docks. Their voices a
This is
mixture
the wreck of the
anticipation
Titanic.
and apprehension.
You've never
For some,
seen it before.
it was a temporary. For others, it would be their last.
It's the most infamous ship in all history.
The day was April 10th,
The Titanic.
1912. Under a sky painted with
From a time
strokes
when
of grey
ocean
and blue,
liners are racing
the
to be the
RMS
biggest,
Titanic,
fastest,
in all her
and best.
majesty, prepared to cast off from Southampton's
RMS
bustling
Titanic.
harbour, The
is
air
a
crackled with
technological marvel.
anticipation, a mixture of excitement and trepidation
When she
hanging
set
heavy.
sail in 1912,
On the docks,
she's the
a
largest
cacophony of
moving
sound
man-made
rose above
object
the
on the
murmur of
planet.
crowd. The screech of gulls,
An
the
unsinkable
mournful
ship.
cries of shipwrights, the frantic shouts of stevedores, all
But around
blended into a chaotic
2,500
symphony.
miles into her maiden voyage,
Thousands gathered to witness
disaster,
this momentous occasion, their faces a mixture of awe and disbelief. As the ship slowly pulled away from the pier, a great cheer erupted from the assembled
passengers and
throng.
crew dragged
Hats
down
were
to
thrown
the
into
icy
the air,
depths.
handkerchiefs waved frantically, and tears streamed down faces etched
more
with
than
a
a
mixture
century
of
later,
joy and
we
sorrow.
still don't know exactly what
The
happened
Titanic,
that night.
bathed in the golden glow
How
of the
she
afternoon
sank
sun, began
and
its
broke
maiden
apart.
voyage, her massive propellers churning the water into a frothy wake.
Hundreds
On board,
of passengers,
the passengers,
and crew
their
witnessed
hearts
the
pounding
tragedy
with a mixture
and
of
lived to tell
excitement
the
and
tale.
apprehension, lined
Yet
the rails,
countless unanswered
waving to those
questions
left behind.
remain.
The ship's whistle blasted
We have
a
lots
final,
of
deafening
historical
salute,
information,
its echoes
but
reverberating across the harbour as the Titanic, her bow pointed towards the open sea, embarked on her fateful journey. Section 5. A world of opulence and grandeur. As the Titanic steamed away from the English coast, life on board settled into a rhythm of leisurely elegance. For the first-class passengers, the world's most opulent liner became a floating palace of indulgence. Days were spent promenading on the expansive decks, indulging in sumptuous meals, and socializing in the lavishly appointed public rooms. The ship's orchestra filled the air with waltzes and ragtime melodies, providing a soundtrack to the privileged lives unfolding on board. Ladies in their finery sipped tea and gossiped in the palm court, while gentlemen in their finest attire smoked cigars and discussed business in the smoking room. The gymnasium, with its state-of-the-art equipment, attracted the fitness enthusiasts, while the swimming pool, a rarity on ships of that era, provided a refreshing respite from the afternoon sun. In the evenings, the grand ballroom came alive with the swirl of gowns and the clatter of champagne glasses as passengers danced the night away. For those travelling in second class, the experience was no less impressive. While lacking the extravagance of the first-class accommodations, their cabins were comfortable and well-appointed. They had access to their own dining saloon, library and promenade deck, where they could enjoy the fresh sea air and the camaraderie of fellow travellers. Section 6. Beneath the surface. While the upper decks pulsed with life and gaiety, deep within the bowels of the ship, a different world existed. Here, in the engine rooms and boiler rooms, hundreds of men toiled tirelessly in the heart of the beast. The air hung thick with heat, sweat, and the deafening roar of machinery. Stokers, their faces blackened with coal dust, shoveled fuel into the ship's massive furnaces, ensuring the relentless steam engines had the power to propel the Titanic across the vast expanse of the Atlantic. Oilers crawled through cramped spaces, tending to the intricate network of pipes and valves that kept the engines running smoothly. The work was backbreaking, the conditions harsh and the pay meagre. Yet these men, many of them Irish immigrants seeking a better life, took pride in their work. They were the unsung heroes of the Titanic, the lifeblood that kept the great ship afloat. Unbeknownst to them, their fate, just like that of the passengers above, hung precariously in the balance. The icy breath of the North Atlantic, lurking just beyond the ship's steel hull, held a secret that would soon shatter the illusion of invincibility. Section 7. The Unthinkable Whispers. As the Titanic steamed westward, the icy grip of the North Atlantic tightened. Wireless messages crackled through the air, warnings from other ships of an unusual number of icebergs in their path. The messages, though acknowledged, failed to penetrate the prevailing air of confidence and invincibility. Captain Edward Smith, a seasoned mariner with decades of experience, held the helm. His calm demeanor and reassuring presence instilled a sense of security in both his crew and passengers. The Titanic, after all, was deemed practically unsinkable. Yet a palpable tension began to creep into the ship's atmosphere as the temperature dropped and the sea grew eerily calm. Experienced seamen exchanged uneasy glances, their years at sea whispering tales of the North Atlantic's unforgiving nature. The whispers of danger, however, were drowned out by the clinking of champagne glasses, the strains of music and the laughter of the carefree. The Titanic, a beacon of light and luxury, steamed onward, oblivious to the icy peril lurking just beyond the horizon. Section 8. The relentless march of time. The days melted into a blur of blue skies and sparkling seas. The Titanic, a majestic queen upon her watery throne, sliced through the waves with unwavering confidence. Her passengers, lulled by the gentle rocking of the ship and the rhythm of shipboard life, surrendered to the illusion of timelessness. Sunday, April 14th, dawned bright and clear. The air was crisp, the sea a mirror of tranquility. Church services were held, followed by leisurely brunches and afternoon concerts. Children played on the decks, their laughter carried by the gentle breeze. As the day wore on, the air grew noticeably colder. The sun, now a pale disk in the late afternoon sky, cast long, eerie shadows across the decks. The wireless operators, busy relaying personal messages for the passengers, continued to receive iceberg warnings from nearby ships. The messages, though dutifully relayed to the bridge, failed to penetrate the Titanic's aura of invincibility. The ship, a testament to human ingenuity, steamed confidently into the night, unaware that the hands of fate were about to be dealt. Section 9. The calm before the storm. As twilight deepened into night, the temperature plummeted. The stars, a million pinpricks of light in the inky blackness, glittered with an almost unnatural brilliance. The sea, now an expanse of black glass, stretched out before the Titanic, its stillness both alluring and ominous. In the first-class dining saloon, the final course of a sumptuous dinner was being served. Champagne flowed freely, laughter filled the air, and the strains of the ship's orchestra washed over the elegantly dressed diners. Life, it seemed, was a waltz, an endless journey of pleasure and indulgence. On the upper decks, bundled up against the biting cold, couples strolled arm in arm, their hushed whispers lost in the vastness of the night. In the smoking room, a group of men, cigars clenched between their teeth, huddled around a table, their faces illuminated by the warm glow of the lamps. The Titanic, a beacon of light and warmth in the vast emptiness of the North Atlantic, steamed onwards, oblivious to the icy spectre that lay directly in her path. The calm, however, was a facade, a fleeting illusion shattered by the sound that would forever etch itself into the annals of history. Section 10. The inevitable encounter. High above the ocean, in the crow's nest of the Titanic, Lookout Frederick Fleet shivered against the biting cold. The night was moonless, the sea a black abyss reflecting the star-studded sky. He strained his eyes, searching for any signs of danger in the seemingly endless expanse. Suddenly, a flicker of white caught his eye. A ghostly shape materialized from the darkness, a shimmering wall of ice rising from the sea. An iceberg, massive and menacing, lay directly in the Titanic's path. His heart pounded against his ribs, a drumbeat of fear in the stillness of the night. Iceberg right ahead! Fleet's voice, sharp with urgency, pierced the silence. He grabbed the telephone, his hand trembling as he relayed the chilling message to the bridge. The words echoed through the quiet ship, a harbinger of chaos. On the bridge, First Officer Murdoch, his face illuminated by the soft glow of the instruments, received the message with a jolt. He reacted instantly, his training kicking in. "Hard a starboard!" he barked, his voice a whiplash against the murmur of activity on the bridge. The ship shuddered as the helm was spun, the massive vessel beginning its desperate attempt to avoid the looming iceberg. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. The iceberg loomed larger, a ghostly apparition against the black canvas of the night. On the decks below, oblivious to the impending danger, passengers continued their evening revelries, their laughter carried on the cold night air. The Titanic, despite her bulk, responded sluggishly to the helm. The gap between ship and iceberg narrowed with agonizing slowness. A scraping sound, like fingernails on a chalkboard, echoed through the night as the iceberg grazed the starboard side of the ship. The sound, though slight, was enough to send a tremor through the Titanic's steel frame. A moment of stunned silence followed, a collective gasp held captive within the ship's steel embrace. The engines ground to a halt, their rhythmic pulse replaced by an eerie quiet. The sudden stillness was unnerving, a stark contrast to the thrumming energy that had permeated the ship just moments before. On the decks above and below, passengers exchanged puzzled glances. The scraping sound, though barely audible, was enough to stir a flicker of unease in the pit of their stomachs. The Titanic, a symbol of strength and invincibility, had been touched, and the world for a brief moment held its breath. The initial shock gave way to a wave of curiosity. Passengers emerging from their cabins and public rooms crowded the decks, peering into the darkness. Whispers rippled through the crowd, questions hanging heavy in the air.
What was that noise?
Did we hit something?
Is everything all right?
The questions, laced with a growing sense of unease, met with shrugs and reassurances from the ship's crew. The officers, though themselves unsure of the extent of the damage, maintained a facade of calm, hoping to prevent a full-blown panic. Below decks, the atmosphere was different. The crew, their faces etched with concern, rushed to assess the damage. Water, icy cold, was already seeping into the forward compartments. The unthinkable truth, the truth they desperately tried to deny, was becoming painfully clear. The Titanic, the unsinkable ship, had been mortally wounded. News of the collision spread like wildfire through the ship. The initial murmurs of concern escalated into a chorus of anxious whispers. The illusion of invincibility, so carefully cultivated by the Titanic's grandeur, began to crumble. In the first-class smoking room, the card game came to an abrupt halt. Men, their faces etched with concern, put down their cigars and listened intently as rumours of the collision spread. The air, once thick with the aroma of tobacco and brandy, now crackled with tension. The elegant ladies in the first-class lounge, their laughter silenced, huddled together, their faces pale with apprehension. The music, once a source of joy and entertainment, now seemed jarringly out of place. Below decks, in the cramped quarters of the third-class passengers, fear spread like a contagion. Families, huddled together for comfort, prayed for deliverance. The promise of a new life in America, so close yet so far, seemed to slip away with each passing moment. Section 5. A change in course. Captain Smith, his face grim, received the report of the damage with a heavy heart. The unthinkable had happened. The Titanic, the pride of the White Star Line, was taking on water. He knew that time was of the essence. Orders were barked, men scurried to their stations. The ship, no longer a vessel of luxury, became a battleground against the encroaching sea. Watertight doors were sealed, pumps roared to life, and the crew fought valiantly to stem the tide. On the decks above, the passengers, sensing the shift in atmosphere, became increasingly agitated. The once comforting thrum of the engines had fallen silent, replaced by the ominous sound of rushing water and the frantic shouts of the crew. The lifeboats, once a mere formality, a precaution against the unthinkable, now represented the only hope of survival. The order to uncover the lifeboats, a stark acknowledgement of the gravity of the situation, sent a collective shiver down the spines of those on board. Section 6. An unsettling silence. A strange calm settled over the ship. The initial panic subsided, replaced by a quiet resignation. Passengers, bundled up against the cold, gathered on the decks, their faces illuminated by the ship's lights. their eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and disbelief. The band, in a gesture of both courage and compassion, began to play. The strains of waltzes and ragtime melodies, a hauntingly beautiful soundtrack to the unfolding tragedy, drifted across the decks, a surreal counterpoint to the growing sense of dread. Husbands held their wives close, their faces etched with concern. Mothers clutched their children, their eyes filled with unshed tears. The silence, broken only by the music and the occasional sob, was deafening. In the face of impending doom, social barriers crumbled. Millionaires and immigrants, united by a common fate, stood shoulder to shoulder, their eyes fixed on the lifeboats, their only hope of salvation. Section 7. The Gathering Storm. The lifeboats, lowered into the darkness, became beacons of hope in the sea of despair. Women and children were ushered in first, their cries of fear echoing across the water. The men, their faces etched with a mixture of courage and resignation, stepped back, their duty to their loved ones overriding their own instincts for survival. The sea, once calm, began to stir. Waves, whipped by the icy wind, crashed against the sides of the sinking ship. The Titanic, her bow dipping lower in the water, groaned under the strain, her once proud lights flickering ominously. As the gravity of the situation sunk in, a sense of urgency gripped the crowd. The cries of the officers struggling to maintain order were drowned out by the rising panic. The once orderly queue for the lifeboats descended into chaos. The band played on, their music a beacon of hope in the face of despair. Their melodies, carried on the wind, followed the lifeboats as they pulled away from the sinking ship, a poignant reminder of the lives that were about to be forever changed. Section 8. A Sea of Uncertainty. The lifeboats, bobbing like fragile toys on the vast expanse of the ocean, carried their precious cargo away from the sinking ship. The cries of those left behind, their voices a mixture of fear and despair, echoed across the water, a haunting reminder of the human cost of the disaster. The Titanic, her decks now tilted at an alarming angle, was sinking fast. The sea, once a symbol of freedom and adventure, had become a watery grave, swallowing the dreams and aspirations of those unfortunate souls trapped within the ship's steel embrace. In the lifeboats, the survivors huddled together for warmth and comfort, their eyes fixed on the sinking ship, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that many, including loved ones, were still trapped on board. The night air was thick with the sounds of despair cries for help. The crash of debris and the mournful wail of the ship's distress rockets painted a terrifying picture of the chaos unfolding in the icy waters of the North Atlantic. Section 9. Whispers turning to murmurs. As the lifeboats pulled further away from the sinking ship, the whispers among the survivors turned to murmurs of disbelief and horror. The magnitude of the disaster, the sheer scale of the loss, was difficult to comprehend. In one lifeboat, a young woman clutched a life preserver, her eyes searching the darkness for any sign of her husband, her heart sinking with each passing moment. In another, a mother comforted her crying children, their small faces pale with terror, their innocent eyes reflecting the horror of the night. The lucky ones, those who had managed to escape the sinking ship, were now faced with the daunting reality of their survival. Adrift on the vast expanse of the North Atlantic, surrounded by the cries of the lost and the chilling knowledge of the tragedy that had just unfolded, they clung to life, their hopes flickering like candles in the wind. The night stretched on, an eternity of fear and uncertainty. The stars, once a source of wonder and navigation, now seemed cold and indifferent, silent witnesses to the human drama unfolding below. Section 10. The Unthinkable Reality. The unthinkable had happened. The Titanic, the unsinkable ship, was gone, swallowed by the icy depths of the North Atlantic. The once majestic vessel, a symbol of human ingenuity and ambition, was now a tomb, a steel coffin resting on the ocean floor. The lifeboats, scattered like autumn leaves on the surface of the sea, held the only survivors of the disaster. As dawn approached, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, the magnitude of the tragedy became horrifyingly clear. The survivors, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion, looked upon the empty sea, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of the lives lost. The world, stunned into silence, mourned the loss of the Titanic and the 1,500 souls who perished beneath the waves. The sinking of the Titanic, a tragedy of unimaginable proportions, would forever be etched into the annals of history, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the hubris of man in the face of nature's awesome power. Section 1. A glimmer on the horizon. Hours crawled by. The survivors, adrift in their lifeboats, shivered in the biting cold. The vastness of the ocean pressed in, a suffocating blanket of darkness and despair. The cries of the lost had faded, leaving an eerie silence hanging heavy in the air. Then a faint glimmer on the horizon. A single star, brighter than the others, appeared to hang low in the sky. Hope, fragile as a newborn bird, stirred in the hearts of the weary survivors. Could it be? Could it be a sign of salvation in this watery abyss? Whispers rippled through the lifeboats. Some prayed, their voices trembling with a mix of hope and fear. Others, numb with cold and grief, stared blankly at the distant light, their minds struggling to grasp onto this flicker of possibility. The star grew brighter, resolving itself into a distinct point of light, a ship's masthead light. The realization, slow and then sudden, brought gasps of relief and renewed tears. A ship was out there somewhere in the vast darkness, a beacon of hope in their hour of need. Section 2. Salvation or Mirage. The lifeboats, energized by this newfound hope, strained towards the distant light. Oars dipped and pulled, their rhythmic splashing a counterpoint to the pounding hearts of the survivors. The light grew steadily larger, but doubt still lingered in the air. Was it real, this promise of rescue, or a cruel mirage conjured by their desperate minds? The sea, vast and unforgiving, had already played a cruel trick on them once. Could they truly dare to believe that salvation was at hand? As the sky lightened with the approach of dawn, the ship slowly materialized from the mists on the horizon. It was real, a tangible symbol of hope in a sea of despair. The Carpathia, a transatlantic liner sailing from New York to Fiume, had heard the Titanic's distress calls and had altered course to come to their aid. A collective cheer, weak but filled with relief, rose from the lifeboats. Tears streamed down faces etched with exhaustion and grief. The Carpathia, her silhouette growing larger with each passing moment, represented more than just rescue. It represented a return to the world of the living, a lifeline back to humanity. Section 3. Whispers of hope, echoes of fear. As the Carpathia drew closer, the survivors, their bodies racked with cold and exhaustion, watched in a daze. The sight of the ship, its decks bustling with activity, its lights a beacon of warmth in the cold dawn, was almost overwhelming. Whispers of hope mixed with echoes of fear as the survivors prepared to board the Carpathia. The joy of their rescue was tempered by the stark reality of their loss. The Titanic, once a symbol of grandeur and luxury, was now a memory, a ghost haunting their thoughts. Mothers clutched their children, their faces a mixture of relief and grief as they searched the faces of their fellow survivors for any sign of their loved ones. Husbands, their eyes red-rimmed and hollow, scanned the lifeboats, their hearts sinking with each passing moment that their wives were not among the rescued. As they were helped aboard the Carpathia, wrapped in blankets and offered warm food and drink, the survivors carried with them the invisible scars of the night. They had looked into the abyss and had been spared, but the memories of the Titanic and those lost would forever be etched into their souls. Section 4. The agony of waiting. Aboard the Carpathia, a somber mood prevailed. The joy of rescue was overshadowed by the enormity of the loss. The survivors, huddled together in the ship's public rooms, shared stories of the sinking, their voices hushed with a mixture of horror and disbelief. Families, their hopes dwindling with each passing hour, clung to each other, desperate for any news of their loved ones. The Carpathia's wireless operators, overwhelmed by the volume of messages, relayed frantic inquiries from anxious relatives waiting for news on shore. The air crackled with tension as the survivors waited for news, their faces etched with a mixture of hope and despair. The sea, once a symbol of adventure and freedom, had become a cruel reminder of the fragility of life and the capricious nature of fate. The Carpathia's crew, their own hearts heavy with the knowledge of the tragedy, did their best to comfort the survivors, offering them food, warm clothing and words of solace. But the true healing, they knew, would take time to process the unimaginable and to learn to live with the weight of their loss. Section 5. A light in the darkness. Amidst the sorrow and despair, stories of heroism and selflessness emerged. Tales of courage in the face of death, of men and women who put the lives of others before their own, provided a glimmer of light in the darkness. The band, playing until the very end, their music a beacon of hope in the face of despair, became a symbol of courage and sacrifice. The men of the engine room, working tirelessly to keep the lights on and the pumps running, knowing their fate, embodied the spirit of duty and selflessness. Passengers, like the Strausses, who chose to face death together rather than be parted, their love transcending the fear of the unknown, became a testament to the enduring power of human connection. These stories, whispered from lifeboat to lifeboat, shared in hushed tones in the Carpathia's public rooms, served as a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable tragedy, the human spirit could endure, finding strength in compassion, courage, and love. Section 6. Race against time. The Carpathia, her decks now filled with the survivors of the Titanic, steamed towards New York. The journey, though fraught with sorrow, took on a sense of urgency. The world, hungry for news of the disaster, awaited their arrival. The Carpathia's crew, working tirelessly, converted their ship into a floating hospital, tending to the injured, comforting the bereaved, and preparing for the arrival in New York. The wireless operators, their fingers flying across the keys, relayed the names of the survivors and the details of the sinking to a stunned world. As the Carpathia approached New York Harbor, the survivors, their faces pale and drawn, lined the rails, their eyes searching for familiar landmarks, their hearts heavy with a mix of trepidation and relief. The sight that greeted them was overwhelming. Thousands of people, their faces etched with a mixture of anxiety and grief, lined the docks, their eyes scanning the decks of the Carpathia for any sign of their loved ones. The world had come to a standstill, united in grief and disbelief at the magnitude of the tragedy. Section 7. The Carpathia's embrace. The Carpathia, her white hull a stark contrast to the dark waters of the harbour, glided slowly towards the pier. A hush fell over the crowd as the gangplank was lowered, the silence broken only by the mournful cries of ship horns and the sobs of those waiting on the docks. As the survivors disembarked, their steps faltering, their bodies weary, they were met with a sea of faces. Some faces held the joy of reunion, tears of relief streaming down their cheeks as loved ones embraced. Others held only the crushing weight of sorrow, their hopes dashed against the rocks of reality. The air was thick with a mixture of relief and grief. The survivors, their ordeal far from over, faced a new set of challenges. The challenge of rebuilding their lives, of coping with their loss, and of carrying the weight of their survival. The Carpathia, her mission of mercy complete, slipped quietly out of New York Harbor, leaving behind a city draped in mourning. a city struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the tragedy that had befallen the Titanic and her passengers. Section 8. A Sea of Sorrow. New York City, once a symbol of hope and opportunity, was now a city cloaked in grief. The sinking of the Titanic, a tragedy that had captured the world's attention, had left an indelible mark on the city's soul. Newspapers, their front pages filled with harrowing accounts of the disaster and lists of the dead, flew off the stands. Churches and synagogues overflowed with mourners, their prayers and hymns a testament to the city's collective grief. The loss of life, so vast and so sudden, touched every corner of the city. The wealthy and the working class, immigrants and native-born citizens all mourned the loss of loved ones, friends and colleagues. The sinking of the Titanic, a tragedy that transcended social and economic barriers, forced the world to confront the fragility of life and the unpredictable nature of fate. It served as a stark reminder that even in the midst of progress and innovation, tragedy could strike without warning, leaving behind a sea of sorrow and a legacy of loss. Section 9. The Weight of Survival. For the survivors of the Titanic, the journey back to life was just beginning. Haunted by memories of the sinking and the loss of loved ones, they struggled to come to terms with their ordeal and to rebuild their lives. Some, overwhelmed by survivors' guilt, questioned why they had been spared while others perished. Others, their bodies bearing the physical scars of the disaster, faced a long and arduous road to recovery. The sinking of the Titanic cast a long shadow over their lives, shaping their perspectives, influencing their choices, and serving as a constant reminder of the fragility of life. Yet, amidst the pain and the loss, there was also resilience. The survivors, bound together by their shared experience, found solace in each other's company, their stories of courage and sacrifice serving as a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. Section 10. Ghosts of the Deep. The Titanic, now a silent tomb resting on the ocean floor, became a symbol of both human ambition and human fallibility. The sinking, a tragedy that shocked the world, forced a reassessment of safety regulations, ship design, and the very nature of progress. The ghosts of the deep, the 1,500 souls lost on that fateful night, served as a constant reminder of the human cost of complacency and the importance of vigilance. The lessons learned from the Titanic disaster resonated for generations, shaping the future of maritime travel and safety. The Titanic, though lost to the depths, lived on in the memories of the survivors, in the countless stories, books and films that sought to capture the drama and tragedy of that fateful night. The sinking of the Titanic, a tragedy that shook the world to its core, became a timeless reminder of the power of the sea, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring legacy of loss. Section 1. The Waning Orchestra. The once grand promenade deck of the Titanic, now tilted at an unnatural angle, was a scene of utter chaos. The lifeboats were gone, their silhouettes fading into the distance, leaving behind a mass of humanity struggling for survival. The band, their music now a faint echo amidst the screams and the roar of the ocean, continued to play. Their melodies, once a source of comfort and entertainment, had become a mournful dirge, a final act of defiance against the encroaching darkness. Wallace Hartley, the band leader, his face pale but resolute, raised his violin one last time. The strains of Nearer My God to Thee, a hymn of faith and resignation, filled the air, a poignant counterpoint to the growing panic. The music, a beacon of humanity in the face of unimaginable terror, washed over the desperate souls clinging to the railings, to each other, to the rapidly fading hope of survival. It was a sound that would forever be etched in the annals of history, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit. Section 2. A Sea of Screams. The Titanic, her once gleaming lights flickering and dying, was rapidly succumbing to the icy grip of the North Atlantic. The ship's stern rose higher, her bow disappearing beneath the waves as the ocean claimed its prize. The screams of the trapped, a chorus of terror echoing across the water, pierced the night. Men, women and children, their faces twisted in fear, clung to anything that offered a semblance of hope, a railing, a piece of driftwood, each other. Friendships forged in the crucible of disaster crumbled under the weight of survival. Men fought desperately for a place on a floating piece of debris, their primal instincts overriding any semblance of civility. The icy water, black as ink and cold as death, swirled around their legs, rising higher with each passing moment. The end, when it came, would be swift and merciless. Section 3. Prayers on the sloping deck. On the boat deck, now tilted at a perilous angle, a group of passengers huddled together, their prayers a desperate plea for deliverance. The elderly couple, their hands clasped tightly, their faces etched with resignation, sought solace in their faith. A young mother, her eyes filled with terror, clutched her infant to her breast, her silent tears a testament to the depth of her love and the immensity of her fear. A priest, his voice hoarse but steady, offered words of comfort and hope, his presence a beacon of calm in the storm. The ship groaned and shuddered beneath their feet, a death rattle that echoed through their very souls. The ocean, a relentless force of nature, was about to claim them all. Yet even in the face of their impending doom, there was a strange beauty, a raw humanity in their shared vulnerability. The artificial barriers of class and social standing crumbled in the face of death, leaving behind only the shared experience of being human, of being mortal. Section 4. Choices in the Abyss. As the Titanic's stern rose higher, the angle of the deck became more precarious. People scrambled for a foothold, their shoes slipping on the wet metal, their cries swallowed by the roar of the ocean. In these final moments, with death a heartbeat away, individuals faced impossible choices. Some, their spirits broken, surrendered to their fate, their eyes reflecting the terror of the abyss. Others, fueled by a primal instinct to survive, fought with a desperate ferocity. A young man, his face white with terror, helped his elderly mother climb onto a piece of driftwood, his love for her overriding his own fear. A husband and wife, their hands clasped tightly, their love a beacon in the darkness, jumped together into the icy water, choosing to face the unknown as one. The choices made in those final moments, choices driven by love, by fear, by desperation, revealed the very essence of what it meant to be human. Section 5. The ship splits. A deafening roar, like the sound of 1,000 cannons firing in unison, ripped through the night. The Titanic, her back broken under the immense strain, split apart. The lights flickered one last time, casting long, eerie shadows across the water before plunging into darkness. The stern, momentarily freed from the weight of the bow, settled back into the water, its momentum carrying it away from the sinking fore section. For those unfortunate souls still clinging to the railings, to life rafts, to each other, the splitting of the ship offered a final, terrifying spectacle. Hundreds were thrown into the icy water, their screams lost in the maelstrom of churning water and debris. The sea, black as ink and cold as death, swallowed them whole, their struggles for survival lasting mere seconds in the unforgiving grip of the North Atlantic. The stern, its back broken, its fate sealed, began its final descent. The once grand ship, a symbol of human ingenuity and ambition, was now a mangled wreck, its death throes a testament to the awesome power of the sea. Section 6. Into the Abyss. The stern of the Titanic, its propellers now spinning uselessly in the air, slipped beneath the waves. The sound of its passing was a death rattle, a final mournful sigh as the ocean claimed its prize. Down, down it went, into the black abyss, carrying with it the dreams, the aspirations, the hopes and fears of over 1,000 souls. The once brightly lit decks, now dark and silent, were slowly crushed by the immense pressure of the deep. The ocean, indifferent to the human drama that had just unfolded, closed over the wreckage, leaving behind only a smattering of debris and the echoes of screams fading into the night. The Titanic, the unsinkable ship, was gone, swallowed by the depths. The tragedy, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the capricious nature of fate, would forever be etched in the annals of history. Section 7. The lifeboats adrift in a sea of anguish. The lifeboats, bobbing like fragile shells on the surface of the sea, bore witness to the final moments of the Titanic. The cries of the dying, a cacophony of despair, echoed across the water, haunting the survivors huddled in their midst. The sight of the Titanic sinking, her lights extinguished, her massive form disappearing beneath the waves, was etched into their memories, a horrifying spectacle they would carry with them for the rest of their days. The initial relief of escaping the sinking ship was quickly replaced by a wave of anguish and despair. The survivors, many separated from loved ones, huddled together for warmth and comfort, their prayers a mix of gratitude and grief. The sea, once a symbol of adventure and possibility, had become a watery graveyard, a constant reminder of the lives lost and the fragility of their own existence. Section 8. The Second Great Wave. As the survivors drifted in the lifeboats, the initial shock began to wear off, replaced by the numbing reality of their situation. They were alone, adrift on a vast and unforgiving sea, surrounded by the wreckage of their dreams and the chilling silence of the night. Then a second wave of terror washed over them. The cries of those in the water, those who had been thrown from the ship or had jumped in a desperate attempt to survive, reached their ears. Hundreds of souls, their voices growing weaker with each passing moment, pleaded for help, their cries a chilling counterpoint to the silence of the night. The lifeboats, already filled to capacity, were faced with an impossible dilemma. To take on more passengers meant risking the lives of those already aboard. To ignore the pleas of the dying meant carrying the burden of their deaths. The cries grew fainter, the pleas for help replaced by the gurgling sounds of drowning men and women. The survivors, their hearts heavy with grief and guilt, could only listen helplessly as the icy grip of the North Atlantic claimed more victims. Section 9. Clinging to life. Throughout the long dark hours, the survivors clung to life. They shared their meagre rations of food and water, their bodies shivering uncontrollably in the biting cold. They sang songs, recited poems and told stories, anything to distract themselves from the horror of their situation. Some, their spirits broken, succumbed to the cold and the despair, their bodies slipping silently beneath the waves. Others, fueled by an indomitable will to live, refused to give up hope. They prayed for a miracle, for a rescue, for the strength to endure. As the night wore on, the stars, once a source of wonder and navigation, became cruel reminders of their isolation. The vastness of the ocean, its surface now calm and serene, belied the terror that lay beneath, the thousands of souls entombed in its depths. The survivors, adrift in their lifeboats, were suspended between two worlds, the world of the living and the world of the dead. Their survival, a cruel twist of fate, had come at an unimaginable cost. Section 10. Dawn's Grim Revelation. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, the survivors were greeted by a grim sight. The sea, as far as the eye could see, was littered with debris from the Titanic life jackets, deck chairs, pieces of wood, all bobbing gently on the surface, a silent testament to the tragedy. The bodies of the dead, some floating face down, others locked in a final embrace, served as a stark reminder of the human cost of the disaster. The survivors, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion, averted their eyes, their hearts heavy with the knowledge that many, including loved ones, were among the lost. The rising sun, a symbol of hope and renewal, offered little comfort in the face of such overwhelming loss. The survivors, their numbers dwindling with each passing hour, clung to the hope of rescue, their faith tested by the unforgiving reality of their situation. The sinking of the Titanic, a tragedy of unimaginable proportions, had forever changed their lives, leaving an indelible mark on their souls and a profound sense of loss that would linger long after the last lifeboat had been rescued. Section 11. A Sea of Silence. The Carpathia, her arrival a beacon of hope in the vastness of the ocean, moved slowly through the debris field, her crew working tirelessly to pull the survivors from their lifeboats. The cries of relief, the sobs of grief, and the murmured prayers of thanksgiving filled the air, a poignant counterpoint to the silence of the sea. As the last lifeboat was emptied, a profound silence descended upon the water. The cries of the dying had faded, the wreckage had settled, and the survivors, their ordeal far from over, were left to grapple with the enormity of their loss. The sea, now calm and serene, held no trace of the horror that had unfolded just hours before. The Titanic, once a symbol of human ingenuity and ambition, was now a memory, a ghost haunting the depths, her story a cautionary tale of hubris and the unpredictable nature of fate. The world, forever marked by the tragedy, mourned the loss of the Titanic and the 1,500 souls who perished beneath the waves. The sinking, a defining moment in history, served as a stark reminder of the fragility of life, the power of the sea, and the enduring legacy of loss. The Carpathia steamed towards New York, her decks crowded with survivors, a microcosm of humanity forever bound by the shared experience of tragedy. Yet amidst the pervasive sorrow, whispers of hope flickered like fragile flames. Stories of heroism and selflessness emerged from the wreckage. The courage of the band, playing on as the ship sank, resonated with the world. The men who stepped back from the lifeboats, sacrificing their own lives for the women and children, became symbols of honor and sacrifice. The echoes of loss reverberated across the globe, but so too did the stories of human resilience. The survivors, though forever marked by the tragedy, clung to life with a newfound appreciation for its fragility and its preciousness. The sinking of the Titanic, a disaster of unimaginable proportions, served as a stark reminder of the power of the human spirit to endure, even in the face of unimaginable loss. News of the Titanic's sinking spread like wildfire, igniting a wave of grief that swept across the globe. Newspapers printed special editions, their pages filled with harrowing accounts of the disaster and the growing lists of the dead. Crowds gathered outside newspaper offices, their faces pale with anxiety, their eyes scanning the lists for familiar names. The world, united in grief, mourned the loss of the Titanic and the 1,500 souls who perished beneath the waves. From the bustling metropolises of London and New York to the quiet villages of Ireland and England, the impact of the tragedy was felt deeply. The Titanic, a symbol of human ambition and progress, had become a stark reminder of the capricious nature of fate and the fragility of life. The world watched in horror as the Carpathia arrived in New York, her decks crowded with survivors, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion. The images of that day, captured in stark black and white photographs, became iconic representations of the tragedy and its profound impact on the world. In the aftermath of the sinking, the world demanded answers. How could a ship deemed unsinkable have met such a tragic end? Were there enough lifeboats? Why was the ship sailing at such high speed through an ice field? Inquiries were launched on both sides of the Atlantic, seeking to determine the cause of the disaster and to hold those responsible accountable. Testimonies from survivors, crew members and shipping officials painted a complex picture of human error, systemic failures, and a culture of complacency that contributed to the tragedy. The investigations revealed a series of missteps and oversights that contributed to the disaster. The insufficient number of lifeboats, the lack of proper lifeboat drills, the ship's speed in dangerous waters, and the failure to heed ice warnings from other ships. The sinking of the Titanic led to significant changes in maritime safety regulations, including the establishment of the International Ice Patrol, the requirement for ships to carry enough lifeboats for all passengers and crew, and the implementation of stricter safety standards for ship design and operation. The tragedy, though a profound loss, served as a catalyst for much-needed reform in the shipping industry. Section 4. The unanswered questions. Despite the inquiries and investigations, the sinking of the Titanic continues to generate unanswered questions and enduring mysteries. The exact location of the wreck remained a mystery for over 7 decades, fueling speculation and prompting numerous expeditions to locate the lost ship. The stories of the passengers and crew, their lives and deaths intertwined in the final hours of the Titanic, continue to fascinate and haunt. What happened to the ship's orchestra, playing on as the ship sank? What secrets did the first-class passengers share in the final moments? What thoughts and emotions raced through the minds of those trapped below decks? The sinking of the Titanic, a tragedy forever shrouded in a veil of mystery, continues to spark the imaginations of historians, writers and filmmakers, each seeking to unravel the secrets of that fateful night and to make sense of the human drama that unfolded on the high seas. The Titanic, though lost to the depths, continues to hold a powerful grip on the human imagination, serving as a reminder of the enduring mysteries of the sea and the unanswered questions that linger long after the waves have closed over the wreckage. The legacy of the Titanic extends far beyond the wreckage that lies scattered across the ocean floor. The tragedy, forever etched in the collective memory of humankind, continues to serve as a cautionary tale about the perils of human hubris and the unpredictable nature of fate. The sinking of the Titanic inspired a wealth of artistic expression, from poignant poems and novels to epic films and documentaries. Each interpretation seeks to capture the drama, the tragedy and the enduring human stories that unfolded on that fateful night. The Titanic has become a cultural touchstone, its name synonymous with tragedy, loss, and the enduring power of the human spirit. The disaster continues to resonate with audiences around the world, reminding us of the fragility of life and the importance of cherishing our loved ones. The Titanic, though lost to the sea, continues to live on in the countless stories, songs and films that keep its memory alive. The tragedy, though devastating, has left an indelible mark on the world, prompting us to reflect on the human condition and the enduring power of hope, courage and love. Decades after its sinking, the Titanic continues to hold us captive. The allure of the ship, its grandeur, its opulence, and its tragic fate transcends generations. The story of the Titanic is a tapestry woven from threads of ambition, innovation, social class, and ultimately human vulnerability. We are drawn to the stories of the passengers and crew, their lives and deaths intertwined in the final hours of the ship's journey. We marvel at the technological achievements of the era, the sheer scale and opulence of the ship, and the audacity of its builders. Yet we are also humbled by the tragedy, reminded of the limits of human endeavour and the unforgiving power of nature. The Titanic, a symbol of both human triumph and human fallibility, continues to fascinate and haunt us, its story a timeless reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of hope. The Titanic, though lost to the depths, continues to inspire awe, wonder, and a profound sense of loss. Its legacy, a complex tapestry of tragedy, heroism, and enduring mystery, continues to captivate the human imagination. The sinking of the Titanic, a tragedy that shook the world over a century ago, remains a timeless